what an amazing space. Thanks so much for opening your garden gates for us. Right now we're going to be talking about stormwater collection, rainwater harvesting. I'm joined by Chris Maxwell-Gaines from Innovative Water Solutions. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tom.
I understand you're interested in this whole topic got started when you were in the Peace Corps. Tell me a little bit about that.
Correct. My wife and I served in the United States Peace Corps 2000-2002 in Suriname, South America. And while we were there, rainwater harvesting was our only water supply. And so living on it, you soon appreciate the preciousness of water. And so, once we got through our service and came back here, my business partner was also a fellow Peace Corps volunteer in our same group. And so we decided to start a business from our experiences that we learned in the Peace Corps.
Well, it seems to make perfect sense, and I bet your customers love hearing about all of that.
Absolutely, and it's just, the thought of experiencing not having the ability just to turn on a tap and water is there, but actually having to wait for the next rain event, that really hits home, and we can bring that to our customers and that experience. Well,
speaking of hitting home, Austin is home to probably the epicenter of rainwater harvesting in the United States, the application of rainwater and stormwater capture. When you're meeting with a customer, what are the first things they really need to consider? Is it the scope of the project?
Correct. Yeah, it's really, when you think about it, it's the goal. When you start out with a very nebulous, I just want to collect rainwater, we can go many places with that.
Sure.
And so it's really the goal. If it's irrigation use, how do they want to use the water? Is it going to be a manual operation, or do we want to have some sort of pump and a pressurized into an irrigation system? So it's really, kind of the goal. And then from that, we get into the thought of type of tank, size of tank, placement of the tank, because some of these can get rather large, and so they can take up a lot of room in your backyard. And so making sure that you have an appropriate placement, and so that's how we start off in any interaction with a potential customer or someone interested in rainwater harvesting.
And the actual capture of the rain, that is largely done just through roofs, correct?
Correct. Yeah, the rainwater harvesting, the definition is kind of roof-based. Stormwater harvesting, kind of that definition is maybe something from the ground. But yeah, primarily, probably 99% of what people see out there is active rainwater harvesting, which is off of a roof and to a cistern. And so from that, there are two methods, and this is an important kind of planning step. There's two methods of collecting water off a roof, and that's through a dry method and a wet method. And so a dry method is basically like a rain barrel, and your downspout comes down, empties into the top of that rain barrel, and then that pipe dries out. So that's a very simple system. The kind of the drawback is maybe limited space where you can have a large tank, because now it has to be against your house. You got windows, all that stuff. So there's a kind of but it's a simple system for people to get into by using a dry system. And then from that, we explore maybe a wet system. And so that is where we actually pull water from multiple downspouts all the way around the house if the person really wanted to. And we route this into basically an underground PVC trunk line. And all of the downspouts, in this case, have to be glued PVC downspouts. And so, not to draw anyone back on that, they can be painted, they match really well. But essentially what you're doing is you're creating a P-trap. And so therefore, you can take all this water from your entire roof, all your gutters, all your downspouts, and route it underground, and then you can take it to a location where you want to put a cistern. So therefore, it doesn't have to be against your house. It can be that back corner of your lot.
And the placement really does matter a lot in terms of where you're going to put the storage.
Yeah, absolutely, because you want to install as large a cistern as you possibly can because of our feast and famine rainfall.
Exactly.
So if you have something too small, we have this large 3-inch event that comes through, overflows, and then essentially you're wasting an opportunity. So we really push people to say, hey, let's consider the largest volume that either you can fit into that spot, or something that can fit well into their budget.
We see galvanized tanks, we see the poly tanks. What are the strengths and advantages of both?
So the poly tanks offer just the advantage of being less expensive. There are a couple companies out there, and so there are some different styles of poly, but the color, you're kind of limited, and so that's kind of a drawback. But there are many different sizes. That's a benefit of the poly. And in terms of just the robustness of a tank, it's going to stand the test of time. And so it's going to really be there for many decades.
I like the aesthetic of the galvanized tank, though.
Yes, and most of our customers do, because it fits well aesthetically with gardens. You can plan a garden feature with it, and it really sets it off. And so, yeah, that is a very popular choice. And the galvanized tanks that we use actually have an epoxy liner on the inside, so the metal is protected from the water.
Oh, there you go.
It's not like these old farm cisterns that are just metal and water sitting in there.
Okay, so the next big consideration, it seemed to me, is it going to be gravity operated, or is it going to actually require mechanics?
Correct. And so obviously the simplest is having a hose bib on the bottom of this tank, where you can connect a hose and you get a little bit of gravity pressure out of it to be able to water some plants. And so definitely for the smaller tanks, this is the best way to go.
Okay.
When you do want to step up into the thought of making it more automated, or potentially connect it to an existing irrigation system, or
and
new,
you can integrate it with an irrigation system. Key point.
Absolutely, you absolutely can. And so there's some logistics, and one of them obviously is installing a pump system. And with the pump system, it does trigger some City of Austin regulations, which is very important for people to understand. And similar, these regulations are similar in other cities as well, but just maybe not as out there as much as in the City of Austin. So.
All right, and you can actually put them underground as well, and this would be very attractive, I would think, for people who are limited by, say, homeowners restrictions or something like that.
Correct. It's there's lots of applications of how we can install these. We have options for pillow tanks, which are basically can be installed underneath the deck or a crawl space of your house.
Yeah, pure and beam homes.
Pure and beam homes. That's right. But the underground tanks, in particularly our area, is challenging because of the presence. That's right, of the bedrock, and so definitely the less expensive option is an above ground.
Okay,
option.
Well, there are concerns. People have kind of swirling concerns about this, so they just don't know. Real briefly, what mosquitoes, algae, are they really big concerns? Or are they easy to deal with?
They can be a big concern, and it depends on how the system is designed and installed. And so for our systems and any really rainwater standards that you see coming out, it's about closed connection points. And so by having an open hole or even a screen inlet and the pipe just kind of coming into it, that presents opportunities for that screen to tear, mosquitoes to get in.
Okay.
So it's really how the system is designed. Overflow pipes having a flapper valve so that mosquitoes can't fly up in it.
Go.
So while mosquito larvae potentially can get into the tank, if you just keep everything closed, it won't affect and increase mosquito populations.
Well, Austin, as I said, is like the world capital of stormwater capture, and I can see why you're a busy man these days. Great, simple explanation about a system that I know a lot of our viewers are going to be really interested in. So, Chris, thanks so much for being on Central Texas Gardener.
You're welcome, Tom. Thank you for having me.
All right, and coming up next is Daphne.